I want to underline that I still believe that the US is an ally to Ukraine, despite all the fuss and the rest of the verbal gymnastics that right now in the air. Because it's in the interest of the United States for Ukraine to prevail. Otherwise, this would be the biggest geopolitical disaster for the United States if Ukraine fails and Putin is to prevail over Trump.
There is a widespread assumption, certainly coming out of the United States and its allies, that basically now is the time for Ukraine to sue for peace because it's losing this war. What's your interpretation of that?
Well, I've had the statement of the White House press secretary, and she was very vocal and clear, saying that Ukraine is to get the peace deal as quick as possible. It reminds me a number of preliminary similar statements that we are practically on the brink of this peace deal. And frankly speaking, Adam, I felt the fresh wind of this peace deal today at night. We got one of the biggest aerial drone attacks in 3 years, 267 drones. So I had to spend practically my entire night at the underground shelter and a few ballistic missiles. So this is the smell of death, but not the smell of real peace talks, what we are seeing. In terms of the peace talks, Adam, the thing is that it's hardly for me to realize what is the framework negotiations. What are the terms and conditions of this kind of peace talk? So first, we need to get a negotiating framework together with our American allies, and I want to underline that I still believe that the US is an ally to Ukraine, despite all the fuss and the rest of the verbal gymnastics that right now in the air. Because it's in the interest of the United States for Ukraine to prevail. Otherwise, this would be the biggest geopolitical disaster for the United States if Ukraine fails and Putin is to prevail over Trump. And we have to get this kind of negotiating framework together with our European partners and friends and with the United Kingdom. Because I want to remind our American friends that this is the biggest war after the Second World War. And the thing is that this war happens on the European continent. And we do understand that there is a huge ocean between the United States and Europe. But the thing is that the ballistic missiles, they don't care about this ocean. So this conflict relates to everyone, and it has implication for everyone, mainly for the NATO member states, where the US is the flagship. So to put it in a nutshell, first, I don't see any kind of real terms of conditions of these negotiations. Second, I don't see any kind of will on the part of the war criminal and dictator Vladimir Putin to hold talks over the real peace in Ukraine. Third, we need urgently to establish a joint group comprised of the US, Ukraine, European Union, and the UK in order to frame a negotiating tactics. Last but not least, I believe that your PM, Honorable Prime Minister Starmer, together with the French president, will do their best to pursue the US president not to urge concessions from Ukraine. I would be happy to listen to any kind of concessions that Russia is to make.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is that people in Washington are saying basically Ukraine can't hold off the Russians without American support. And it appears that some in the United States would be prepared to withdraw that support on the grounds that this is not an issue for them.
Oh, Adam, that's not the news. That without the United States, it's practically impossible for Ukraine to prevail in this war. And Americans are well aware of this, and we are well aware of this, and we are very grateful to the American people for their support, to the people of the United Kingdom, of the European Union, and of the entire free world. But the thing is that the more Americans articulate these kind of statements, the better Putin feels.
Mm.
The more high-profile Americans say that, look, NATO is not on the agenda, and it's unrealistic for Ukraine to regain its territorial sovereignty and integrity. So the better Putin thinks of his chances to prevail in this war. So we are not allowed to take off the table any kind of trump cards.
And just
That's my
finally,
message to President Trump.
what do you say to Donald Trump, who's been quite explicit that he wants payments in the form of some kind of rare earth minerals deal from Ukraine for the support it's had already and presumably going forward as well?
Well, Mr. President, first, we want you to win, but not President Putin. But as of now, it seems to me that President Putin has an upper hand. Second, Mr. President, I do believe that we are on the same page. Russia waged the war against Ukraine. So let's make Russia pay. And you in the US have around $3 billion of frozen assets of the Russian Federation. We in Europe have around $300 billion of frozen assets. So this is the amount of cash that have to be liquidated. And Russia is to be brought to justice. And that's in your interest, Mr. President, in the interest of your country. And let me remind you that previous administration, they did the same. They tried to reset U.S.-Russia relations. You remember the Secretary
Yeah,
Clinton.
but
But in the end,
what about his demand for valuable minerals? What do you say to him on that?
on that, I want to be very clear that Ukraine is ready and Ukraine is happy to cooperate with our American friends and investors. And I strongly believe that in order to have this kind of profitable joint investment plan, first we need to get the security in Ukraine, because it's hardly imagined that anyone from the United States is to invest even a penny into Ukraine without the security guarantees. So I believe that my president is to sign MOU with the president of the United States, and we will be ready to launch this huge multi-billion project as quick as possible. But it has nothing to do with the peace plan. It's a separate track. We
Okay.
can say intertwined, but let's do it together.
Okay, I've got that. Arsenio Yatsenyuk, very nice to speak to you again, former Prime Minister of Ukraine there.